Hey everybody, this is kind of a basing video, for bases obviously, and what we see here is something that should be very familiar to everybody in the hobby. It is an empty plastic sprue. Now, why am I showing you this? Well, it's essentially garbage, but you can turn this into basing material, and which is pretty easy to do. There's several ways of doing it. If you have an old grinder, like a hand crank grinder, you can take this, chop it up a bit, like make it into smaller pieces, but not too small, and then hand grind it. And that'll give you rubble type of flock, kind of like big sand granules, only a plastic sprue. You can probably find a hand grinder online or on a thrift store or a flea market. I wouldn't suggest using coffee grinders or blenders or stuff like that, only because A, they're more expensive usually, and B, if you have it in the house, it's probably for food, and you shouldn't mix the two, obviously. So don't go doing that and getting in trouble. But yeah, another way of doing it is taking your clippers and then clipping them in places to give you random jagged pieces. And the first method of grinding, which I don't have a hand grinder, so I can't show you what it looks like, but if I ever do get my hands on one, or get a chance to get one that's not too expensive, I'll show you what the end result looks like. But that result will let you pretty much use that as flocking for bases, depending how fine the grinder can get it. While the later, like this clipping it, is good for using it as accents on a base. And this works really well for urban terrain and basing. Like if you get some styrofoam and some flock, and you cut into jagged pieces and stick this into it, or make it look like a mound of debris, and then you flock it and stick this into the styrofoam, jagged pieces of sprue, and then glue it, you can make good rubble mounds. There we go, rubble mounds. Objective pieces, stuff like that. It's also good for accenting seas of death terrain or your own homebrewed terrain. So yeah, I mean, we get this all the time. Now, I have a drawer full of, well, not full, but a drawer of a lot of these pieces, and it's not too tedious. You can cut them into manageable sizes to store them somewhere that you can store it, and then when you need it, you can pull a piece out and then cut it how you need it. So you don't have to cut it exact, just enough to make it more manageable, because right now, in the sheets that they are like this, they're pretty big, they're not very flexible, they'll take up a lot of room fast. The reason why I suggest this is it's essentially free basing material. You get it with the models, you're essentially paying for it. Why throw it away? I guess it's a bit of the pack rat mentality or whatnot, but it's good for that. It can even be good to use on vehicles depending on the piece. If you get a nice straight piece, you can use it as modified armor to represent battle damage. On orcs vehicles, because why not, to customize them a bit. And what I have is just one example of how to use it that was on hand easy enough. Here we have a rebel base, city ruins, and this piece, obviously the little rail, is a piece of sprue. All I do is clip it so it fit, glued it on before flocking, and then I flocked stuff around it, so it looks like it's part of the terrain, not sitting on top of the terrain, like it's been there for a bit. And then you paint. This is look like rusted metal, and it can be anything. It could be a support beam that fell out of a building. It could be a part of a railway for like a train or a monorail. Well, not so much a monorail, but like a train or stuff like that. Maybe even part of a vehicle. Who knows? But it's something that can make the base pop a bit without making it, take away from the model. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this. It's great to use, and what's good about it is, unlike stuff you might find like rocks, I mean, everything can hold paint, but it's the same plastic as our model, so it'll hold paint fine, and usually it hold paint's better than metal. It won't chip as easily. Also, another good example of stuff like this, if you cut a piece of sprue and keep the sprues, if you're not sure what a color will look like, you can paint it on the sprue. And what I mean is, I've done it when I was checking out the gray that I used in that model I just showed you. I cut out a piece, I based it black, and then I painted it with the paint on it just to see what it would look like, color-wise. This is good to test if you want to test whether you use a white basing or black basing for your model, because the color will show up differently depending on what color you use as the base color. It's also good if you're mixing paints to test it on here to see how dark or light it is and what you want without potentially ruining or just making it a mess on a model. So these things have a wide variety of uses, and the cool thing is you can use that piece you test colored on as terrain, as like a piece for terrain or basing later, and just paint over it, so it's not really wasted. So yeah, you get this in any plastic model, and what's cool is depending on which kit you get, the plastic pieces may look a little differently. I mean, for the most part, they'll be straight like this with the lines and then pieces sticking out. But like vehicles have things that are on angles. For like the rhino, when they cast mold the rhino top, and devilfish have different looks, stuff like that. So depending, it won't be crazy, but depending on it, you might find some interesting stuff. And one more thing to note, the imperfections that we get from the molding process, like the flashing here and whatnot, while it's not the greatest stuff, but if you get it on parts where you don't need it, you can like trim off that piece and it looks good for look like melted metal if you paint it. It can be used for like melted metal, it can be used to represent shiny obsidian, stuff like that. If you glue it on the base, you have to be careful, it is pretty thin, but if it's like a good chunk, you can cut it with some sprue and it can look like I don't know, metal sheen, something shiny, like cooled down melted metal. Depending on how you paint it, it can look like fallen pieces of stained glass if you just paint it red and with some colors or whatever. Obviously it's not going to be transparent, but it'll give the illusion of something there. Just things to think about. To a lesser extent, this works with pewter models, like hold on, this is the new Vulcan model, but I'm not going to focus on the model, but you see this piece on the bottom where the spear is attached to? Once you take the pieces you need off of that, you can use that as either weights for the bottom of a model, to keep, if it's a little top heavy and falls over it, to help keep it standing upright, or you can use that on the bases itself, kind of like I use the sprue here. That's pretty much it. Once I'm done with the orcs I'm painting, all 20 of them, I only got 5 done. Once I'm done with those, I'm going to do a next step, kind of like a follow-up video of this for kits. Like, I don't know, if you're a converter out there, chances are you've kit bashed. I've kit bashed maybe Pre-Air 2000 Suns, as you've seen either on the blog or on this video, or this channel I should say, not this particular video, using 1000 Suns, not 1000 Suns, using Tomb Kings and Warriors of Chaos bits. And when you kit bash, you're going to have a lot of extra material. I'm going to show you how to utilize stuff that we really need, like also high elf stuff, like a high elf chest piece. I won't need that. Well, I might try to use it, but if I can also use it as pieces for basing, kind of like a statuesque bust or something like that. Statuesque bust, there we go, or something. So I'm getting ahead of myself. When I actually do that, I'll do a video and show you what I mean. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Chances are you have this as we speak, unless you haven't bought models in a while. And I suggest you make the most of it, because it's like I said, it's free, and nothing's better than free material when you want to, for basing at least. It turns out the stuff better, but we're not getting into that. So until next time, take it easy.